The Oilwell Basin. The Guild has only recently found out about this unique ecosystem, nestled away in the Forbidden Lands. This area is part of the vast complex of the Land Spine, which transports energy from the Dragon Torch throughout the Forbidden Lands, and likely served as the manufacturing center for Wyveria. Nowadays, it is spilling over with oil from deep reservoirs and pipes that transport it in from all across the land, and an entire ecosystem has emerged around it. Right now we find ourselves in the midst of the Fire Spring, this area's inclement season, during which intense heat spews forth from inside the earth. It burns up a lot of biomatter, either of dead or rotting animals, or those that are weak and aging. And the ash that comes from this then feeds a season of plenty, during which new life flourishes. The intense heat is a problem during all seasons, however. As such, many animals have adapted to it. The vigor mantle bug, so common across all the Forbidden Lands, has a subspecies here which has special enzymes in its gut. These allow the chill mantle bug to break down other kinds of plants, like snow herbs, and keep important cells alive to produce a cooling effect for itself. It can also stay cool by burrowing, mainly emerging when breeding season comes about, so don't feel too bad about yoinking them. With some protection against the heat, we can venture further. We can see a subspecies of rough lizard nearby, the ember rough lizard. They don't differ much from their cousins in other areas, mainly being a different color, with a more prominent crest to both communicate with mates and rivals, as well as controlling body temperature. Some show a mutation, which we call azure rough lizards. They don't act different than the regular siblings, but do tend to win dominance disputes simply due to their large size, and they are a more vibrant azure color. There is also a jelly-drawn basking here. These amphibians are extremely common, eating small and medium-sized prey by ambushing them. A thick slime under their skin protects them from the heat and any adverse effects the oil may have on them, allowing them to burrow under it. Their meat is rich and delicious, and frankly I have no idea how they aren't overhunted because they aren't exactly smart, but they are quite cute. Bomb beetles also scuttle about here, rolling up pieces of volatile ore to form an explosive ball. Some say they feed their larvae with this ball, but in my opinion they simply use it to line their nests, as their own shells are resistant to concussions and heat, so it probably provides some security. Now, while I won't focus on large monsters in my ecological survey here, I do want to shine a light on new Udra, the apex predator of this region. It was only rarely seen until the arrival of the guild, and it turns out they form a vital part of the food chain at every level. You'll see what I mean later. They coat themselves in oil as they have adapted to a hot environment where they can't easily form the mucus that normally protects them from drying out. Their siphon, normally used for breathing and propulsion in other cephalopods, now spews out fire instead of pressurized water, allowing them to set the oil ablaze and increase their own offensive capabilities. But it also lets them ignore friction more easily, making them shockingly mobile. We will revisit New Udra later, but first let's take a look at the ground. We can see a relative of the flora shell crab here, the crude shell crab. They have a cup-shaped shell that allows them to pile oil and tar onto it as camouflage. Cute little things. The upper part of this area doesn't contain many more animals, so let's start venturing into the caves below. The entrances are guarded by scale bats, tiny flying wyverns that eat insects, and whose waste is an amazing fertilizer for the few plants that manage to eke out an existence here. But those plants have some more help from the pure wasp, yet another relative of another well-known animal, the vigor wasp. They too have special enzymes in their gut, alongside them not only specializing in vita lilies, but almost all plants that live here, allowing their honey to be a sort of cure-all. Some of this honey they store internally, so while you'll make them upset by taking it, they won't be harmed by it beyond having to work a bit of overtime. As the season shifts over to plenty, there is another predator I'd like to shine a light on, a species of bird wyvern called cranodaths. They are fascinating, having developed a complex lattice of muscle fibers and osteodermic plates that let them inflict intense but precise concussive force on prey. Not only that, but their beak has evolved into an interlocking set of teeth-like edges that give their bites incredible power. They can be quite docile, surprisingly, but I am not brave enough to attempt taming one. Nearby you can also spot the gloom gecko. They are fairly generic as geckos goes, but do appear to be poisonous, though to what degree no one has been bold enough to try. There is also a blink angler in the water, a terrestrial fish that uses a lure to prey on sparklefish. The lure is chemical, exuding a smell that mimes the female sparkle jelly. The small ones you see floating about are all male, so it works quite well on them. The females, also called peony sparkle jelly, are very rare, only emerging during the plenty when breeding has already concluded. In fact, all the glowing spots you see are actually eggs and larvae that develop inside the jellyfish, and will eventually kill it when they mature and rupture out. On a less grotesque note, here is a pink landlight shrimp. They're actually the same species as the ones found in the Windward Plains. The color is just due to the microbes they consume being bioluminescent. Fine hairs all over the body capture chemicals and minerals either coming from the hydrothermal vents or from the ashfall after the fire spring, which attract floating microbes that they then feed on. Speaking of microbes and plankton, have a look at the water here. As you can see, when disturbed it glows a bright cyan. This is due to an abundance of plankton in the water. The bioluminescence serves as a defense against predators. When eaten, the fish that ate them will now glow, attracting larger fish that eat the smaller fish. So over time, evolution will disincentivize consumption of this particular kind of plankton. And speaking of fish, there's a very cool one nearby. Petracanthes were once thought to have gone extinct a long time ago, but in the New World they re-emerged. Well, turns out a population of them also survived here in the Forbidden Lands. And much like the New World petracanthes, their physiology hasn't changed much when compared to fossils, so they can tell us a lot about how the ancient ocean used to look. This entire area reminds me of the ocean, if I'm being honest. It's all very reminiscent of the deep sea, but fueled by energy provided by the dragon torch. In fact, if you ride down here, we can see a piece of the land spine sticking out, leaking wilkstone and giving the only other home I know of to pillow ponds, besides those found in the ruins of Iberia. Anyway, it's once again Fire Spring, and I want to bring the survey to a close by showing you my favorite thing about this entire region. If we ride deep into the caverns under the Great Forge, we can find the nest of new Udra, the fearsome apex of the basin. New Udra reaches sexual maturity very late in life, when they become what hunters call tempered. If one such tempered new Udra emerged during the Fire Spring, you may find their nest absolutely overflowing with eggs. While these cephalopods represent the very peak of the food chain, it turns out they're also a crucial part of the food web lower down, as when the inclemency turns to plenty, all the eggs hatch at once, providing a wonderful spectacle, as well as an enormous amount of food for many of the animals I showed off in this ecological survey. The new yaya, as they're called, feed on ash and microbes similar to the sparkle jelly, but avoid directly competing due to staying lower down in the hot areas until they reach adolescence, which sadly has never been observed. But this seems like as good a place as any to close out this expedition. This area is truly one of my favorites. The way new Udra slots into the food chain is a marvel of evolution and ecology, and an ecosystem like this existing around a resource like oil, which normally leads to the death of regions in which it wells up, is just so fascinating and unique. Plus, I just think the octopus is cute. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like with that funky thumbs up emo, and if you'd like to see more surveys of other areas, do let me know. I did skip some animals that are also present in other regions, so if you felt I didn't talk about something, I might still do so in the future. After all, the Forbidden Lands still have numerous mysteries to solve. But I'll just enjoy the spectacle a bit longer. See you at the base camp, Hunter, and good hunting.